Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Nico, and welcome to another ranking video. Today I'll be ranking every single FNAF fan game that I've played on my YouTube channel, from worst to the best. Now, before we start this ranking video, of course know that this is my opinion, so if you see a FNAF fan game that you really like near the bottom of the list, please don't tag me in the comments below. This is also going to be a very big list, resolving around 25 different FNAF fan games. So this is going to be cut into a two-parter. And of course, finally, just because a game's very low on the list doesn't mean I don't like it. In fact, actually, there's a lot of games very low on the list that I would actually play every now and then. But this just means that there are definitely other FNAF fan games that are better than them. So I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that a lot of the other games ahead of on the list are just a lot better. So keep that in mind. Let's start with the 25 spot. At number 25, we have a very OG FNAF fan game that I played very late in my YouTube career that a lot of you OG subscribers will know, otherwise known as Stickman Survival 2. Now, this is actually one of the only two mobile FNAF fan games that I've played on my channel, and being a mobile fan game, it's not all that good. This is the only game on this list that I'd say is really bad, and I don't find myself ever coming to play again. And it's pretty much just a complete 2D FNAF fan game, meant to be a throwaway FNAF game for mobile games, and of course, there's nothing much to it. I mean, you got the camera, the map, it's pretty basic, but the only thing that I will give it that's kind of interesting is where it takes place, which it takes place in a prison, which is definitely very different from any pizzeria or facility that we've seen so far, and a lot of the inmates, of course, are pretty unique as well, like a fire dude, a zombie, and a ghost guy. But other than that, I don't really think anyone will disagree that this definitely deserves the worst spot on the list. It's definitely the least interesting and less innovative of any of the FNAF fan games on this list, and is very poor, honestly. Like, all of it's 2D, and it's just... I mean, it's a FNAF fan game revolving around stick figures. It's not going to be that interesting. Anyways, with that said, let's get on to number 24. At number 24, we have Zulax Inc, which is actually another mobile game, but it's definitely a lot higher than Stickman Survival 2, mainly because it feels like a legitimate horror game with interesting gameplay mechanics, as throughout each night you have a new puzzle to deal with, such as flipping different tiles on a specific camera, keeping the thermostat in between 35 and 5, winding up a light source on the cameras to keep it lit, and of course, multiple different other things that you must do to survive the night, while also trying to survive from the dolls that are trying to kill you, where you must hide under your desk. Now, this is definitely one of the most interesting FNAF fan games I've seen, and it's a mobile game, so I've got to give it credit for that. I didn't think a mobile game would be this good, and it even has a hard mode, and it's definitely very interesting, and honestly, I can see myself somewhat coming back to this one day, playing the hard mode, because I did finish it, but then never played the hard mode. So let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see this make a return. But with that said, it's number 24. Let's get on to number 23. Now at number 23, we have the Return to Freddys Rebooted. Now, the reason why this is actually very low on the list is mainly because it just feels like FNAF 1 all over again, but with different mechanics, as the left door does not open, as you have to use a mask to fool Bonnie, and of course flash a light on Foxy to keep him away. Then of course the puppet can get you from the right side now, along with a new camera with the vent system where you must flash Balloon Boy to keep him from killing you during the night. But other than that, it's really just a carbon copy Five Nights at Freddy's, with of course Golden Freddy not being a Easter egg this time around, as he is active on night 6, and the unoriginality is really what killed this game. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad game. This is the first FNAF fan game that's actually on PC, but yeah, definitely not the interesting at all, other than it's just changing a lot of factors, but still being pretty much FNAF 1 all over again. But with that said, that's pretty much going to conclude 23. Let's get on to 22. At number 22, we have Jolly. Now, Jolly's a very interesting game. Like, it's definitely one of the most different games on the list so far, as it pretty much tries to ties itself with the Five Nights at Freddy's lore later on, but this is definitely the weakest Jolly game, as the Jolly series is definitely one of my most, if not my most favorite FNAF fan game series, but that doesn't change the fact that Jolly 1 was really just the foundation for what was to come, as it was pretty much the developer's first chance at starting his franchise, as the DLCs aren't too good, and there seems to be way too many mechanics that really suffocate the player, although they don't really even need to be used, as the player may end up trying to use a lot of these different mechanics, as a pro like myself would realize that there's really no use of using any of the mechanics other than just using your light, the door, charging your generator, and of course just fixing the wires. And just ignoring the vents and the elevator altogether. But, yeah. The game is very difficult, but very simple in a way. Like, there's way too many mechanics, but of course you don't even have to use many of the mechanics whatsoever, as all you really have to do is fix the wires and then pay attention to the things in your own office, like checking the door, checking the light and then closing the door. So, yeah, it has a lot of mechanics, but if you cut down a lot of the mechanics, the game just becomes very easy. But with that said, that's pretty much Jolly. Let's get on to number 21. Now at 21, we have Jolly 2, which is actually not all that better from Jolly 1, as the only things I would say that's better about it is, of course, the better graphics and gameplay, as this game actually does act like the opposite of Jolly 1, as it's a lot more simple in terms of mechanics, but the gameplay is a lot harder as you get on, as I in fact haven't even been able to beat Night 6 yet in this game, mainly because of how little you can do, as you only have the camera in front of you, you can shock animatronics on the camera to keep them there for a little longer, you can only use your doors once before they have to charge, and then of course you gotta fix any glass leaks that's behind you. And that's it. Like, if an animatronic double teams one of your doors, you have to wait for it to recharge, which will pretty much end with you dying. Especially on those later nights when everyone's moving and double teaming you all the time. And there's no lights at the door, so you gotta predict when they're there, because if you make a mistake, you're just dead. So, that really does piss me off sometimes. Like, the mechanics are very simple, but the gameplay can be really suffocating itself. But the only things that really make this better than Jolly 1 is, of course, the better graphics, and of course, the introduction of a Foxy minigame, which can keep you 2 hours in the next night, kind of like fun with Plush Trap. But with that said, let's get on to number 20. At number 20, we have Five Nights at Candy's 2, which I definitely do believe is definitely the most lackluster of the Five Nights at Candy's games, as most of the gameplay is extremely easy, as all you really have to do is lure the animatronics with the phones and of course scare Chester off with the phones if he tries to bang on a vent. And then finally, of course, you have the penguin who appears in your cameras that can stun your cameras unless you look away fast enough, kind of like with Phantom Balloon Boy in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. But other than that, there's nothing much to this game, as you have a flash in front of you to tell if they're too close to you when you have to lure them, but that's almost pretty much it. The game's way too simple, way too easy. The only times where it's actually somewhat difficult is on nights 5 and or 6. And I do like the old change and introduction of the cat with the rat on night 6, which definitely adds some challenge to the game, and of course is the most interesting night in the entire game. And this game definitely tries to lure into the story element more than the gameplay, which I can respect it for that, but Five Nights at Candy's 3 later on does it a lot better. But with that said, Five Nights at Candy's 2, number 20 spot, the most lackluster of the Five Nights at Candy's games. Let's go on to number 19. At number 19, we have One Night at Flumpty's 1. The very funny parody like FNAF fan game to the Five Nights at Freddy's series. It's really funny and it plays surprisingly good. It was one of those top quality FNAF fan games at the time, but of course it doesn't hold up to what One Night at Flumpty's 2 or 3 is. And of course there's a lot of other FNAF fan games that I do think are better along the list. But number 19, it's a fair spot. It's not too low, of course, because, again, like I said, not all these games that are on the lower end are bad. As One Night at Flumpty's is really our big jump into the really good FNAF games, as One Night at Flumpty's doesn't do really anything wrong. It actually plays extremely smooth. The mechanics are fairly simple, of course, but of course the night is actually a lot longer and is, of course, just one night, so it doesn't add too much replayability like the next few games. But Still a nice fun challenge if you want to challenge yourself with one night that lasts longer than usual. And yeah, it's also really freaking funny. I love how the game plays. It plays very well and definitely deserves a number 19 spot. Anyways, on to number 18. And number 18, we have Those Nights at Rachel's 2 Reloaded. Now, before I get some hate in the comments, let me explain. Now, yes, this is more of an extreme parody, not really taking itself very seriously of a FNAF fan game, as it was literally just an April's Fool FNAF fan game, which isn't an actual sequel to Those Nights at Rachel's. But I still had to include it on this list because it's just way too hilarious. It's actually very well done that it had to at least been mentioned on this list. So I decided to put it on the list as number 18. Now, the gameplay is really smooth. I love the animations with the pistol and how you're shooting and reloading. It's very swift. Definitely should have expected something like this out of Nixon, who is the creator of the Joy of Creation story mode, so had to, of course, expect something big and very, very quality-based from him, as this is pretty much just a round-based mini-game of you just shooting the animatronics and trying to survive as long as you can, as it reminds me of Call of Duty Zombies, which I absolutely love myself some zombies, so yeah. This definitely gets my approval and definitely deserves the 18th spot. Anyways, on to number 17. In fact, in the number 17 spot, we have, well, the first Those Nights at Rachel's, which is the actual game, FNAF game that actually takes itself serious. Of course, by the same creator named Nixon. It's really freaking good. Really, of course, the graphics and the designs of the animatronics are really well done. The gameplay is really smooth and creative, showing some semi-free roam with you having to run off your desk and, of course, close the curtains for The Thing, which is pretty much just a creepier version of the puppet from FNAF 2. The whole lights, to the ambiance, and of course the lighting is really creepy, and of course has its own hard mode just like Zulax Inc, which turns everything from a cool blue to a hellish red, even making the animatronics designs even more hell related, which is very freaking creepy. And I didn't even make it past night 2 in the hard mode, so yeah, really freaking hard. I was too scared to even continue that anyways because of the whole atmosphere that changes. And of course, this game also trying to connect to the Five Nights at Freddy's storyline with its phone calls, as they also, of course, mentioned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But yeah, definitely a really good, solid FNAF game all around. Anyways, on to the 16th spot. Anyways, at the number 16 spot, we have the good old Five Nights at Candy's. Now, you might be wondering why this is actually somewhat low and not even in the middle of the list. That's because there are a lot of other better FNAF games that I think are better than it. But 16, I think, is still a fair spot for Five Nights at Candy's, as it's not bad at all. I'm not saying any of these FNAF fan games are bad, except for possibly Stickman Survival 2. But Five Nights at Candy's was one of those old Five Nights at Freddy's fan games that just took the world by storm and spawned multiple sequels, including Five Nights at Candy's 2, 3, and Remastered, which we'll get into those other two later. But Five Nights at Candy's is pretty much a lot like what FNAF 1 was, but has its own little universe, own feel, no lights, just doors, and the unique mechanics of their eyes lighting up, and of course, changing things up with animatronics without eyes, which makes you always have to check the cameras, and of course having its own Foxy mechanic with blank, as if he's gone, he'll then bang on your window, which you must close the door for. But yeah, definitely one of those really good feels of a FNAF fan game. It's really good. I always enjoy coming back to this game every now and then to enjoy it. The story's really good. The gameplay's goes really well, moves slick. It's just a really good must-play Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. And this is when we are getting into the really, really good Five Nights at Freddy's fan games. Anyways, on to number 15. Number 15, we have Five Nights at Candy's 3. The Five Nights at Freddy's 4 version of Five Nights at Candy's, which is really freaking cool, honestly. I love the nice touch of an homage to Five Nights at Freddy's 4, as you must deal with only the rat and the cat, as they are now monsters, as this takes place in a child's bedroom, just like FNAF 4. And I really like that, but it still feels like its own game, as you, of course, got a music tape to move the night faster, and of course, you must stop the rat by flashing the light in him, and of course, the cat will appear on the far right and left, which you must flash his light, and he will try to double team with the rat to catch you off guard. But yeah, definitely better than Finance Candies 1. Definitely really unique, and you don't really play this for the gameplay, as the gameplay can be somewhat boring over time, and doesn't really get all that hard unless you're talking about the 6th night, which really changes things up with Monster Vinny. But no. The main thing you would like to play for this game is, of course, the lore, as this game is heavily lore-based with its own backstory, which is really cool, and honestly is kind of like FNAF 3, as in terms of not so fun gameplay, it makes up for in story. Now, am I putting this higher than Finance Candies 1? Yes. Why? Mainly because even though the gameplay isn't as fun as Finance Candies 1, the story is definitely a lot more intriguing, and not just that, the gameplay is a lot more creepy, and of course brought back my anxiety, and of course the designs and animations and the gameplay mechanics itself run extremely well. The graphics of the game are very well done. This game is just a phenomenal graphics related Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that of course gives a lot of story to its own backstory. So yeah, definitely deserves the 15th spot. Let's go on to number 14. Next up, we have another old FNAF fan game that I played very late on my channel. Number 14, Fredbear's Fright. Now, you may say, oh, this seems like another Five Nights at Freddy's reboot. Why isn't it as low as the Return to Freddy's? That's because it's a lot more unique, and all the animatronics are completely different, including Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, the hand puppets, some creepy brand new animatronics like Prototype, and of course, Malziki and Fright, and of course, Scrapped Fredbear, which is pretty much just a Golden Freddy with an endoskeleton. But yes, this game is definitely very, very freaky, and definitely deserves to be this high on the list. As one of the older FNAF fan games that I've played on my channel, I'm definitely going to hold a special place for this game in my heart, as I did enjoy the gameplay. I thought it was very unique too, as there was no real Night 5, as you play to Night 3 before things change on Night 4, where Fright becomes active. Then, of course, on Night 5, you're playing as the Bone Guy, trying to keep the Freddy suit from locking down on him, as you must, of course, stop moving if Freddy or Bonnie checks on you in the doorway. But yes, definitely one of the most unique FNAF fan games. Definitely has very unique mini games, and of course, has you unlock the box, which of course ends with you grabbing a tape, and which has Athen's name on it. Definitely has its own secret lore, really good gameplay, plays fairly well, and all the mechanics really do blend in very well, but of course, like most FNAF fan games, the 20 mode is pretty much impossible. But other than that, playing this game casually, it's a really good game. You get a lot of scares, and honestly, definitely high up there. Anyways, on to the 13th spot. Finally, at number 13, we have Five Nights at the Chum Bucket, which is, of course, an homage and sequel to Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, which I never got the game to work, and of course, well, I had to just play this instead, which I am very, very impressed with how the game plays, and of course, it's really well done. It really feels like an old Nixon Those Nights at Rachel's game, of course, being made on the Unreal Engine, the animatronic designs of the SpongeBob crew being very freaking creepy. The gameplay is really cool, and everything flows very well, and yeah, it's the game. I just don't really have much to say about it other than that it's number 13. I really did enjoy this game. It's really freaking scary, especially if you don't know what to do. Definitely, the animatronic designs are very freaking creepy. The gameplay goes very, very well, plays very well. Of course, having its own story with you playing as bait to lure in your old friend from Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, as Plankton's manager tries to take you and, of course, your friend out by using you as bait. And, of course, has its own story that, of course, revolves around the ending of Five Nights at the Chum Bucket. And, yeah, really unique FNAF fan game, and I really enjoyed playing it. Definitely made on the Unreal Engine. Really enjoyed the 3D models, which really make the SpongeBob gang really freaking terrifying, definitely ruining my childhood, as these guys are just really freaking creepy. The creator of this game really did a good job in making my childhood really freaking terrifying and ruining it. I don't know if I can see SpongeBob the same way again after just playing this game. But with that said, yeah, that's going to end our part 1 of our ranking every Five Nights at Freddy's fan game I've ever played on my channel from worst to best. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you never miss a video. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be ranking the other 12 FNAF fan games. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this list. And of course, stay tuned for part 2, which will be out very, very soon. So with that said, let me know if you agree with the list so far in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video stream and or post. Stay safe, have a great day and or night. Later, Gators!
Oh my God.